important in inductions. So now that we know a little bit more about inductions, we've role-played it, we've thought through it, we've taken a look at the value test, we've also been able to try and induct someone into our specific role, and then we've documented that process, what documents we require, how the system works of induction. Now we're going to also just quickly do a case study. So that case study is going to be in your red book, otherwise known as your project pack. If you are electronic, it is LPP. Okay, so your LPP. And we are going to go to section number 4. And we're going to be introduced to someone by the name of Bukiwe. Bukiwe is someone who has arrived at the job, and unfortunately things do not go well. So let's take a look at Bukiwe. So it says Bukiwe's new job. On her first morning in her new job, Bukiwe announces herself at the reception desk of her new company, but no one seems to be expecting her. She is asked to take a seat. After 25 anxious minutes, a secretary comes in looking for her and explains, "I'm very sorry, but there's no one in, and we weren't expecting you. Who are you, and what are you expecting to work? Where are you expecting to work?" Little flustered, Bukiwe introduces herself and says, "I thought I was to start in the sales department." "Oh, that lot," says the secretary. "You'd better come with me, and I'll introduce you to everyone who's around." When they get you to the department, it is empty. Bukiwe is shown to a desk piled with dusty files, and the flustered secretary continues, "I don't know where they're going to put you, but you can sit here for the moment. Take a chair from one of the other desks. Sorry about the mess. There doesn't seem to be anyone around, so I'll just find you some recent reports to read. They'll give you a good idea of what you need to do around here." The reports arrive, and Bukiwe is left all alone to fend for herself. From time to time, people come in and out of the department, but they all ignore Bukiwe. She manages to find the coffee machine and in the canteen where, again, no one seems to be interested in her. She spends 2 bewildered, anxious, lonely days before her new boss, Derek, the manager who recruited her, returns to the office. "Oh, you've joined us then. It's good to have you with us. Deborah, isn't it? How are you settling in? Are they looking after you? Okay." So obviously, this is not a great start to a working career in a specific company. What I'm going to ask you to please do is you are going to read through the questions on page number 2, and you are going to be honest and open and use your own analysis and your own thought process. So here, put yourself in Bukiwe's shoes. How do you think she'll be feeling after this introduction to her new company? I want you to answer this. Then, how should she have been introduced to the company? Using your own initiative and your own understanding, please do that. Then, question number 3 is based on your business. So, how are new employees introduced to your company? So, what happens when they arrive? What's the process? What's the system? How do they make sure that they socialize? How do they make sure that they understand their job? What goes on in your business? Then what standard operating procedures are in place to introduce new employees in your organization? So are there procedures? What is the procedure? Do they do a health and safety induction? Then do they meet with the manager? Then do they get introduced? So what is the process that happens when people arrive at your business? Then what I want you to do is to think about all the documents or all the things that need to be in place for a new member to arrive. So maybe they need to have a map of the facility. Maybe you need to make sure that they have coffee with their new manager. Maybe someone takes them on a tour of the facility. Maybe they get issued with PPE. What is the process? Okay, so make a checklist, so that when a new team member arrives at your business, that they don't end up like Bukiwe. Okay, so there's your exercise. Give yourself 15 minutes to do that specific exercise, and then we will move on to the next exercise. So just pause here, and then give yourself 15 minutes and then we will come back and do the next thing. All right. So now that you have done Bukiwe's job, we're going to be moving on, and you are now going to be doing some reading. So we have now finished inductions. We are going to move on to what we call adult learning. So in your learner reference manual, which is your blue manual, you are going to open that up. And I want you to please go to section number 12. Now, section number 12 is broken up into 3 sections. So the learning cycle part 1, then the learning cycle part 2, and then the learning cycle part 3. Okay. So once you've read all of those, then I'm going to ask you to read section 13 as well, because part of learning is listening, and we need to learn how to listen in an effective way so that we can gather information, we can turn that information into knowledge, that knowledge into skills and abilities. And so if you can also learn about listening and how to ask questions in a way that you will learn from it. So section number 12, section number 13, give yourself 15 minutes to do those 3 elements. So section 12, the 3 parts of the learning cycle, and then section number 13 about listening and questioning. And then once you have done that, then you can come back to the video, pause now and give yourself 15 minutes to read section 12 and section 13. Now that you have read section 12 and section 13, you are set up to do the next part. So if you go again to your red book is where all your practical exercises are. I want you to now go to the value test that is based on adult learning. So our value tests are in section number 13. So towards the end of the book, or right at the end of the book, they're the green pages. So you are going to have to go to the first green page at the back under section number 13, and you are going to fill in the 5 questions. Okay, so this is going to be pretty quick, 5 minutes to answer the 5 questions based on adult learning. Okay, so you're going to pause now, give yourself 5 minutes, and then you come back to this video. Okay, so now, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to mark this video. So now we're going to mark the video. It is adult learning, and we are going to go, okay, the initial stages in a group learning process are define group competencies, assess learning needs, prioritize learning needs, agree on the learning plan, and identify the most appropriate learning method, or tell, show, do, or forming, norming, storming, and performing. Now, if you have read the learning process and the learning cycle, you will know that it is A, look at the group competencies, assess the learning needs, prioritize those learning needs, agree on a learning plan, and identify the most appropriate learning methodology. Then, new learning will not stick unless learners have better than average memory, the training is really good, or learners once back in the workplace are given an opportunity, resources, support, and encouragement to convert this new learning into applied competence in a job. So the most correct answer over there is C. Obviously, you need to take your information and knowledge, learn how to apply it, get the support, get the resources, and therefore you will learn. Then, question number 3, assessing learning needs is best done by an authorized assessor using observation over time. B, by a defined skills matrix and a baseline testing to see who knows what. C, by direct management and team observing a team member's actual behavior to identify the gaps between actual and desired performance. So, the most correct is C. By direct management and team, observing a team member's actual behavior to identify gaps between actual and desired performance. Then we've got question number 4. Learning delivery is best done A, in a classroom away from the workplace. B, by matching the learning objective, skills being taught, learners' learning styles, and available resources to decide on an overall strategy. Or C, at school. Once you're in the workplace, there isn't enough time for learning. So again, if we take a look at all the available options, B is the correct one. We need to match the learning objective and the skills being taught with the learner's learning style and the available resources to help this person to be able to achieve the overall strategy. And then the last one is learning styles can include active or passive learning, situational, democratic or autocratic methods, and methods which use visual, auditory, kinesthetic, or internal dialogue, depending on what a learner prefers and how they learn best. So when we are teaching anyone, especially in workplace or occupational programs, we need to do it in a C method. So we need to use visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and internal dialogue or internal dialogue, and we need to know what people use. Okay, so there. I hope you have got all of them correct. If you did, congratulations. Now the next thing that we are going to do is we are going to do section number 2 in the red book again. Okay, so back still in the red book, we want to go to number 2. Okay, here we go. So here we go. How could you apply what you know about learning strategies and styles, as well as your workplace environment, to improve continuous learning opportunities within your team at work? Break this down into the table below. So this is section number 2 that is in your book. I want you to go to this matrix. So what you're going to do is you're going to look at your people. So let's say I have someone called Peter. Now, Peter doesn't like reading books, but what he's really good at is using his hands and learning on the job. So, Peter, what is their learning style? So we learned that practical learning is called kinesthetic. That means that they're using their hands, they're using their body, they're actually doing the job. So, kinesthetic. So, what learning strategy or events would be best to enable this team member to learn? Well, I need to actually do a practical demonstration and allow them to do it for themselves and then give them feedback. Then how could I support learning and growth for this person? Well, I must give them opportunities to be able to practice what they've learned. That's how I'm going to help Peter. Then Mary. Mary is a very studious person. She likes to read things, research things before she even tries them. So this is Mary. Mary. What is her learning style? She learns through reading. What learning strategy or events would best enable this team member to develop? I must give her the SOPs, I must give her the user manuals and let her read it before she attempts the job. How could I support learning and growth for this person? I need to make sure that she has the learning materials available before she is expected to do that task. So I want you to go through some of your team members, at least 3. Tell me what is their learning style, how you're going to help them to learn, and what you can do to help them to achieve this. All right, so ladies and gents, you have got about 8 minutes to do this exercise. Once you've done this exercise, then come back to the video. I want you to pause it now and take the 8 minutes to fill in that matrix in section 2 of your red book or the LPP if you're working with your electronic guides. All right. So now we're going to go to the portfolio of evidence. Now that we know about adult learning and we know about the different learning techniques and how we can improve on our learning outcomes, we are going to go to our page number 64. Okay, so page number 64, that's where we're going to be starting off. There we go. Page number 64. It is entitled Learning Analysis. So wherever you are in your learnership progress, you have now been exposed to some workplace learning and assessment activities, even if it's been just this phase. Answer the following questions about the learning styles, strategies, and experience. Answer in both English and your chosen second language. Okay, so any second language. So let's say you are Afrikaans or Isxhosa or Zulu or Sotho. You will do your English answer and then you will translate it into your second language. Okay, so don't forget to do your second language. Obviously, you can use tools to help you to be able to answer it in your second language. Thesauruses, there's lots of thesauruses online to assist. Okay, but what learning resources have you used so far? Have you used a resource center? So maybe you've got a little library in your workplace. If you've used it, you tick it. Maybe you've gone to a library. You can tick that. Then how useful has this been to you? Has it been not very, some, or very? Why and how? So yeah, I like the library. It's got lots of resources and it's a quiet space to learn. That would be my answer. Then you translate that into your second language. Texts, reference materials provided. Well, if you've been on this program for long enough, you're going to have done that. So you go tick. How useful has it been? It's been very useful because the material is directly linked to the work that I'm trying to do. Great. Then you do it in the second language. Printed media. Okay, so printed media is things like magazines or trade journals or newspapers. Not very, because a lot of the magazines are outdated and actually don't speak to the latest context. Then I'm going to translate that. Visual media. So this is things like going onto YouTube or the internet or social media and learning things there. So yes, okay, has this been useful? Yes, very useful. I find new things all the time that I'm interested in and it unpacks it for me. Okay, translate. Internet, yes, definitely. I like using the internet because it's quick and it can give me very clear answers especially through AI. Great. Now I need to translate that. Other people or mentors. Yes, I've had that before. How useful has this been? Very useful. I can go in depth. They have lots of knowledge and experience, and especially working practically. Then I'm going to translate contact training. Okay, so now this is where you might give me a hard time. So yes, I've done contact training. I found it very useful. We had a facilitator that gave us good examples and helped us through the learning process. Okay, then two others. So where else do you learn? So I've been on excursions. Okay, tick. This has been really interesting because I went to a site that does something similar to ours and I learned about new best practices. So that was an excursion. And then I went to a workshop. Okay, workshop. Tick. I learned about how to deal with disabilities in the workplace. It was fascinating and people told their stories. And then second language. So those two others are two other learning opportunities that you've had that have not been those kinds of learning tools. Okay, now question number 2. How do you learn best? Is it through visual, experimental, practical? So you need to just answer that question. So for me, I love auditory input. So I listen to a lot of podcasts and it allows me to think through things. So I use a lot of my internal dialogue after the podcast. So what is it for you? You would write that in there and obviously translate that. Then question number 3, considering your learning style, what learning strategy or combination of strategies would you use? Summaries, mind maps, experiential learning, pictures, visual reminders, repetition, study groups, brainstorming, keywords, memorizing, underlining, skimming, and scanning. Okay, so for me, again, because I'm an auditory learner, I like to talk through things with another person, and then I want to get their opinion and their input, and then I actually like to put it down on a mind map, and that allows me to visually see as well. So that works for me, might not work for you, but how does it work for you? What combinations of strategies would you use? Then, when engaged in the learning activity, how often do you do these things? Check understanding, clarify meaning, get further information, confirm accuracy of information, review texts and reference materials, learn through group discussion, or learn through observation. So maybe after every time we meet together, you do 10%, you check for understanding. Now, do you need to do more of this or less of this, or are you okay? So maybe for me, I need to actually do more of this. So I'm going to say I need more of this. Then clarify meaning. You know what? I need to ask more questions just to try and understand it better. So I do this 30% of the time. Do I need to do it more or less or enough? I'm fine with the amount that I do it. Do I get further information? I do this about 40% of the time. It's actually a bit of a waste of time sometimes, so I should do less of it. Then confirm the accuracy of information. So I go onto the internet to check if my lecturer or trainer or facilitator is giving me the right information. So I do this, 30% of the time. Should I do more, less, or is it okay? It's okay for now. Review texts and reference materials. So if I get texts, where does it come from? Who wrote it? I don't really check that. So maybe 5% of the time, I probably need to do that more. Learn through group discussion. I probably do that 40% of the time. I need to keep that at the same level because it really, really helps. And then learn through observation. I only do this about 5% of the time. I should do this more too. Okay, so for you, how much percent of the time do you do this specific thing? And should you be doing more, less, or at the same level? Then when researching a topic, what steps do you follow? So maybe for you, I need to actually be very specific in terms of what I want to research. Then I go on to Gemini AI and I ask it a question. Then I go and I read a book that is suggested by Gemini. Or maybe I go and ask a mentor first, and then watch a video about that specific topic, and then I talk to my mentor again about that topic. So that works for me. What works for you when researching a topic? Now, what type of behavior would make a group or learning situation more effective in the following scenario? So if you are having a meeting, how would you learn even more? Okay, so in a meeting, I would listen actively. Give an example. When a subject matter expert talks, I should be taking notes. Okay, site and field visit. How would I learn more effectively in this scenario? I should be taking videos. Give an example. When I go to the fisheries, I should be taking a video of how they do the fish processing, and that will give me better insight. Then an excursion. Okay, I should actually do more research before I go on the excursion. So give an example. I've been wanting to go to Simonstown, and I probably should read a book about Simonstown before I go. Group discussion. Okay, I should learn. I should ask more questions in a group discussion. Okay, so when we talk about running SOPs, I should actually ask lots of questions before I draw up the SOP. A group activity, I need to lead more, okay? And that I will learn from that. So when we do team talks in the morning, I think I should run a team talk and I would learn more. Another workshop, At a workshop, I also need to be more practically involved. That would help me to learn more. We did a CPR course and I just watched, and I should have actually got involved. So that is how I will get more out of these learning situations. Now I must just take those answers and put them in my second language, and that would be at the bottom of page number 67. So you just translate from English over there into your second language. Now we go to page number 68. So thinking of the following workplace characteristics, how do they affect learning for you or for others? Think of an extra 2 characteristics of the workplace and how they could affect learning, and describe these here as well. So the environment in which I work, okay? So I work in an environment where it's very quiet and we do a lot of listening and training. Okay, so what effect does that have? So when we are all discussing and debating, it helps us to learn a lot better. An example is at the end of every question, we have a chance to debate and discuss. Technology. We often use the internet to try and search for better resources. An example, when we run communication, I always like to give people links to websites. Communication resources. I'm very lucky that I have a smartphone, and that smartphone allows me to learn a lot, especially through people sending me videos. An example, someone sent me a video about a new leadership style, and I learned a lot. Multilingual needs. Sometimes it can be quite tricky when people speak different languages, because I'm not too sure if everyone understands. An example, one of my colleagues' first language is Xhosa, and sometimes I lose him when I use technical jargon. Okay. Other. So any other factor that might affect your learning. So for me, resources. Okay. The effect, we have bursaries which allow us to actually progress in our learning. An example, I have just asked for a bursary so that I might be able to do my honors. Okay. Characteristic, another one, size of business. The effect, there are a lot of people in my business, which means I can speak to a lot of people and learn a lot of things. Example, we have 10 trained people on new leadership styles, and I like to sit with them during lunch and learn from them. So those are 2 other things that I can write down. Now, obviously, if we've done it in English, we now have to do it in our second language as well. So that's going to be page 69. Please translate what you did on page 68 onto page number 69. Now we are going to page number 70, and this really relates to your industry. So what sector are you part of, and how could these factors unique to the sector influence your learning in the workplace? So I'm part of the fishing, I'm part of the fishing industry. We are what we call a primary industry, because we obviously gather things from the oceans. Most of our learning happens practically, because we have to work on the ships and we have to learn how to scale fish. And so everything is about practical outcomes. So that's what is unique to my industry. Now, if you are in IT, we work in IT, we have to be very technologically literate. We have to do lots of new programs because all of the programs change so quickly. That's unique to your industry. Okay, then question number 9. What organizational type do you belong to? So government, parastatal, heavy or light industry, large organization, SMME, and how could factors unique to your organization affect your learning? Okay, so I said I was in the fishing industry. So what is the factors? We are a fishing industry, and how does this affect the learning process? Everything we learn is very practical. Okay, then it's very loud in the factory. How does this affect the learning process? it makes it difficult to hear my people, and I have to use a lot more visuals in order to give my message across. I work in a large organization. Because it's a large organization, there's lots of people and lots of opportunities to learn and to grow. What else? Okay. We have lots of semi-skilled people. Okay. How does that affect my learning? It means that people are constantly needing to grow in competency, and there's lots of opportunities to be able to go onto programs. We have lots of health and safety issues. So how does this affect the learning? Most of our programs include a health and safety element. So if I think about my industry and my organization, what is it about my industry and organization that affects the learning and the learning process that I go through? So that's question number 9. And obviously, once you've answered it in English on page 70, you're going to answer it in your second language on page number 71. All right, now here we go. You've just done this one in your red book, in your LPP. So again, you're just going to redo it here. So who are the people you work with? What is the learning style? What strategy should you use? And how can you support them to learn better in your team? Over here is your team member's signature and date. So remember that when you get back to the workplace, the people who you have mentioned here, please ask them to sign, date, and also any comments. If they go, well, yeah, that's exactly me, well done. Let them comment. Let them affirm that is who they are. Maybe you got it wrong, and then they can actually tell you, I actually learn better through reading, or I learn better through visuals. So let them tell you what they think. At the bottom, you're going to sign and you are going to date. Then we move on to the next page. All right. What do you need to do less of or more of to get the most out of this learnership? You know what? I actually need to put more time aside to do research into the subject matter. I also need to find a mentor that's good at management to help me to really learn more. I also need to spend less time on the internet because it can be distracting. So for me, that might be what I need. What is it for you? What do you need to do more of? What do you need to do less of in order to get the most out of this learning opportunity? Then, what support do you need in order to make this program really useful for you in the workplace? I need to always know how the theory links to the practical work that I do. That's what I need to know. I also need someone who's got lots of experience to guide me in how my company does things so that I don't rely on the theory and I actually am very practically aware. So that's what I need in terms of support. Maybe I also need access to a computer because I don't get access to a computer, and that's really going to help me to get the most out of this program. So what will help you? All right, now what you're also going to do is, now that you know about auditory, visual, kinesthetic, practical, experiential learning, once you know about how important it is to have learning resources and how good it is to have mentors, I want you to go and have a chat to someone in your team. And I want you to put together a little presentation for them to explain what you have learned in the adult learning section. You're going to do it in your second language. So this is going to be a real challenge for you. So, in your second language, you're going to say, Môre dames en here, dit is wat ek verstaan van hoe om te leer as 'n volwassene in die werksplek. En so wat ek verstaan is dat daar baie tipe leer kanse is en visuele en ons kan ook gebruik ons oë en ons ore om te verstaan. So just tell people about what you've learned in your adult learning section. So make sure that it has an introduction, make sure that it's easy and clear, that you discuss the different learning styles, that you teach people about the learning strategies, that you tell people about the importance of research and analysis methods that they have used on this program, that you discuss the specific type of workplace that you work in and how that affects the learning process. I want you to also discuss that how you've used learning materials and strategies to increase learning opportunities in your team. Also, as a learner, how have you been encouraged to ask questions and listen and learn from the presentation? Was the information that was have a clear summary, and was the majority of the presentation in your second language, which you understood? So if you are going to do it in Afrikaans, please find someone who is Afrikaans to guide you. If you are going to do it in Sotho, please find someone who understands Sotho. They will then mark you over here, and they will give comments. That person that watched you or listened to you, please make sure that they date, that they put in their name and signature, and that you as the learner also sign that you have completed the task. In a perfect world, and in fact, not just in a perfect world, I need you to please make sure that your key notes are attached to this page. So page 74, when you do it in your second language, please make key notes, and that will then show the assessor that you have prepared and that you have explained a lot of the things in your second language. So please put your presentation notes on that page. Okay, and ask an observer to observe. Okay, so then thank you very much. We are now then going to go to section number 12 in your red book. So in your red book, we're going to go to section number 12. Okay, section number 12. Let's just rotate it so that it looks right. Okay, section number 12. Okay. So remember this tool, we did it right at the beginning yesterday on day 1. So we made sure that our people are, doing the right things, that we have the right people, that they belong, that they're clear in terms of how things work, that we have a visual way of record keeping, of keeping people accountable, that we have goal prioritization, that people know what's the most important thing, make sure that we understand about things like root cause analysis, that we deal with conflicts, that we know how to run meetings, and that they are growing and learning and developing through the adult learning process. So that's incredibly important. Now, based on that, we're going to go back to our POE, and I want to show you the last section I want you to do. So this is on page number 52. So let's see if it's still on page 52. There it is. All right, so this is based on your team. And what I want you to do is to track your team for a couple of weeks, maybe just 1 week. Okay, record how you and your team will measure team performance and outputs according to agreed targets. Use the following table. So all of you have got targets, you've got priorities, you've got deadlines, you've got things that have to be done, you've got tasks, you've got task lists. This is where you're going to put it all together. So for the period, and I'm going to say, okay, so this is a week, the week ending the 13th of September 2025. Now the team activity and goal. Okay, so we need to capture personnel details. To what standard or quality? It has to be 100% accurate. How will this be measured? Well, the system will make sure that all fields are filled in. Who's going to do it? So it's going to be Tom and Mary. The target was met. Okay, so during this week, yes, they did it. They captured all the personnel data. Was there any variances, and what was the reason for the variance? So with this one, they did it absolutely right during this week. All right, now we have to recruit 10 people every week. Okay, to what standard or quality? It has to be 10 people that are in the specification. How will this be measured? They will fill in application forms, and those have to be fully filled in. Who are the people allocated? It's going to be Peter and Rachel. Now, during this week, they met the target. Then there's no variances because they met the target. Now, the team activity and goal, what else is important to them? Oh, we need to do the payroll. Okay, so payroll has to be done. To what standard and quality must payroll be done? Okay, it must be in on Thursdays before the payroll run on Friday. How will this be measured? Well, we want 0 customer complaints. Who's in charge of this? It will be it's going to be Rachel and Tom. Was the target met? No, this time it wasn't. So they didn't get it in on time. It wasn't in on Thursday. The variance noted, they were 12 hours late. Why? Because they didn't get information from the site. So this is what you're going to do is you put in all the weekly tasks that you're supposed to do. To what standard or quality must they be done? How are you going to measure that it's to the right standard or quality? Who's in charge of those specific tasks? Did they meet the standard or quality or the target? If they did, then you're going to tick. If they didn't, you tell me why there was a variance and what reason that variance was there. You are then going to put in your name and your signature. You're going to date after the 13th of September, whenever that week is that you're going to monitor. And all of those who are part of your team, they will put in their names and their signatures on page number 52. All right, so ladies and gents, that then brings you to the end of the portfolio of evidence. You have done a whole bunch of things in your red books. You've also obviously read a lot in your blue books, and you have completed all the exercises in your yellow books, which is your portfolio of evidence, to show that you are capable of using these theories and fundamentals and practically being able to use them in your workplace. So we're going to end off with just making sure that we go through the checklist of all of the activities that we are supposed to be doing. So let's go to the checklist. It's on page number 38 and 39. Okay, so here we go. The first thing that we did is we did a team assessment. So you looked at all the outcomes that you were going to do, and you gave yourself marks and you created a benchmark. So if you're happy that you did that, please put a C next to team assessment. Then we looked at team performance. Now that was looking at the wheel and marking your people as to how good we are at inductions, how good we are at learning and development, how good we are at selection of team members. And if you remember doing that, it was in section number 12 of your red book. Please put a C there. Then you did a value test on learning, on adult learning. Please put a C next to that, and what your score was for that specific exercise. Then learning analysis, you looked at all the people in your team and you told me how they best learn. So please put a C next to that. Then you did a value test on stand-up meetings and facilitating team meetings. So if you scored over 50% for those, please put a C as well as what you scored. Then you did a value test on record keeping. Please put a C next to that, as well as whatever you got for your value test. Record keeping, we did it in our portfolio of evidence. We did not do it in our red book, but you can put a C next to that because it was part of a process. Then we did Bukiwe's new job. You told me about why it was not a good thing that she was left to her own devices and she didn't feel very welcome in this business. Please put a C next to that if you answered the questions and you put together a checklist of an induction. Then you did a value test on induction. Please put a C there and put in a score that you scored for your induction test. Then stand and deliver. So remember, you are going to run a team meeting and someone's going to give you feedback based on how you did the team meeting. Once you've done that and put it in your portfolio of evidence, please put a C next to that. Then we looked at the code of conduct. So please put a C next to code of conduct and also the score for that value test. Then we did a practical exercise on the moral compass, and you looked at where you fall on the moral compass, and you then also looked at where some of your peers or colleagues might also be. Please put a C next to that. Then the code, we did not do that. Please leave that blank. Stand and deliver 2. That is where you are going to tell your team about the different learning styles, about how your workplace does learning, about the different factors of your workplace. You're going to do that obviously in your second language. If you have done that, please put a C next to that. And then the last one is your team development tool. Also in section number 12, you looked at how your team operates and how good they are at doing that. Please put a C there. Please make sure that someone in your office or someone in your team signs as a witness, and that you date the date where you have completed either the video or that you have completed working on the portfolio of evidence, and you put that date in there. Okay, so once you've done that, then obviously the only thing left for you to do is your logbooks. And so your logbooks are obviously at the end of your portfolio of evidence, and they run pretty much exactly the same way as every other logbook that you have done up to this point. So again, please make sure that you put in your name, your ID number into the logbook, and then that you also fill in the logbook according to the learning outcomes that we have dealt with over the last 2 days. So what you'll see again is it's very much specialized to this module number 3. Again, every day, please put in your week that you worked, how many hours you worked in that specific week. Please put in each day of how many hours you worked on those specific days. And then I want you to go through the different learning outcomes. If you have done any of those in this week, then please just tick that you've done that, and a little bit about what you actually did. So for instance, record and report team performance against team output. I did that this week. What happened is we set targets for the whole team, and we had a team meeting to confirm those targets. What was the result? Everyone bought into the targets, and we have seen us achieve the targets this week. Distribute records for a meeting. Yes, tick that. What did I do? I set up an agenda and minutes for a meeting. Well, it was very clear. It kept the meeting on track, and the minutes are keeping people accountable for their actions. So please just go through all of these. What did you do this week? Tick those things that you did. Tell me about the context and what was the result of you having done that. At the bottom, please make sure that you sign and your witness or your manager countersigns in terms of having completed that logbook. Remember that we need to obviously do all the logbooks, because that shows that we have invested notional hours in making sure that we have got engaged in the learning outcomes that are part of the management qualification. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to a close of module number 3. Again, you know how to get hold of me. If you have any questions, please put it up on our WhatsApp Learning Hub. We're very happy to work with you. If you want to have any concerns or obstacles or challenges currently at your workplace, please speak to me, and I will then bring that to the project manager. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, have a wonderful rest of the day, and I hope that you have learnt a lot, and good luck with putting your portfolio of evidence together. We'll chat at module number 4.